Green Man really came out of my desire to capture the healing beauty of nature through my music. It's about spring, about rebirth and regeneration and starting again, which is something we can do daily. And I think it's all about being in the present moment. And this is something that nature reflects back to us really beautifully. And what really attracts us, I think, to the natural world is not just its beauty, it's its truth, its essential authenticity. And nature just is, there's no apologies. And it's that, I think, which really speaks to us on every level. It's really amazing. And most importantly, the music is meant to be a positive message of hope and healing, channeled somewhere up here into my hands and out into the world to whoever is listening. I would say to write and record the EP, it probably took me about 3 months on and off. The process of writing music for me varies a lot, actually. Very often I'll get a little idea and I'll sing it into my phone and get it down really quickly. So I'll sing the melody first, and then I might hear the counter melody and the rhythm, so I'll get that down quickly before it disappears. And a lot of the time I just sit at my computer and I use a music program which is called Logic, and I record each track initially into that. And then if I'm writing for a film or television show, I do all the initial sketches into the computer, and then I have what are called musical samples, which are like virtual musical instruments which sound almost as good as the real thing. Not quite, but can sound amazing. And depending if there's a budget or not for live musicians, and also on the size of the instrumentation, I write first in the studio and then I go somewhere else to record it. That's the general process. For Green Man, I think I'd been walking through the woods on the Isle of Wight a few years ago, and I found myself on the beach, and I was just looking out to sea, and this little idea popped into my head, and I sang the little idea into my phone, and they've ended up eventually being developed into 2 pianos and 2 voices, which is in essence what you hear now. There have been quite a few highlights in my career. The first was working on a feature film called The Weekend, which led me to meeting and working with the composer and Beatles producer, Sir George Martin. And this was an amazing case of wish come true, because I remember just being in the kitchen of my old flat in Bristol and saying to my boyfriend at the time, I just remember saying out loud, I wish I could work with Sir George Martin. I was just sort of saying my thoughts. And it was just then, a few weeks later, I had a call from an agent who was pitching some different composers to George Martin Music. I think with the view that of helping George with lots of projects that he couldn't do, because I think at the time he was supposed to be slowing down and not taking on as much, which I don't think he ever did slow down. But I sent off some music and they really loved it. And then I went up to see George, and we had this lovely cup of tea, and I brought some fruitcake with me, I remember that, and got on really well. And then in the end, George Martin Music ended up managing my career. And then after that, this sort of led on to another moment that changed a lot of things for me, and that was writing the music to Aurora Cantamus, which is a Warner Classics release, and an amazing experience. I think not only because it was probably one of the biggest and most musically exciting things I'd ever done, but because the girls' choir and the choir leader Pamela Cook I worked with were just so wonderful. They were amazing, professional, and just they had this amazing energy about them. And hearing the 50 girls in Air Lyndhurst Studios, and I think they're all between the age of 12 and 18, all singing together with these stunning angelic voices. And then on top of that, this amazing orchestra recorded at Air Lyndhurst all together. Just was amazing. It was dynamite. And the first chorus, I think, when they sang Summer Song, the first chorus of Summer Song coming through those speakers in the little studio there, I don't know, it blew me away. It blew everyone away. And then that album stayed at the top of the classical charts for over 3 months, I think, and ended up being nominated for a Classical Brit Award. So it was very exciting. That was a really key moment for me. The other career highlight, I would say, was the BBC Africa series with Sir David Attenborough. And the great thing about that was that you got to write really sort of musical story because it was beautifully story driven with some really funny moments. For example, the two giraffes, that was a crazy moment. These two giraffes, I got to write a kind of Morricone-esque Wild West standoff to these giraffes meeting in the desert, and then I went to town and doing mixed genres with sort of soaring operatic voices and sort of beautiful orchestral textures as they started to beat each other up and nearly kill each other. And then things like these two mating beetles and a flowerhead who were just highly sexed and going a bit mad. It was really, really funny. Regarding musical influences, I would say it's probably more a case of what influences my music than who, really. I think because any kind of beauty in all its forms has a big influence on my music, whether that's a piece of artwork or a poem or a really moving story or a film. And I think so any kind of piece of music which influences me somehow gets absorbed back into the creative flow. And I just love emotive, lyrical, melodic, powerful music. And I grew up with a lot of classical music at home, actually. And I love Mozart with his stunningly beautiful melodies, and Janacek, another composer who was very influenced by nature, Anton Bruckner, Ennio Morricone, and so many. And I really love a lot of the singer-songwriters from bands from the 60s and 70s, like James Taylor, Simon and Garfunkel, John Lennon, the Beatles, of course, Nick Drake, and I love Joni Mitchell. There's something so nostalgic about that time and the amazing writers that came out of that. And it may sound strange to some people, but I really do believe there are higher forces at work, particularly when you're creating. Personally speaking, I think I go into a little bit of a trance when I'm writing, because very often I'll play the music back and think, how did I get there? It's taken on its own energy then, and it's sort of like a person I feel I've met before, but I know I don't know them. And I guess the music just channels through me, which is a great thing. I just hope it never dries up. I got involved with the Wildland Trust because I was looking for an environmental charity to work with by raising funds through my music. And I felt that more than any other charity that I looked into, they seemed to punch way beyond their weight in terms of keeping their costs low and making a massive impact on the planet. And how they do it is they use people's donations to buy land, and then they preserve these habitats around the world, protecting the wildlife within them. And I think to date they have saved nearly 1 million acres of rainforests and other natural habitats around the globe. So, for example, if you give £100 to the Wildland Trust, that would equate to the protection of a whole acre of land in South America. And if it was £1,000, that'd be like an acre of land in India. But have a look, because anyone can get involved by going on their website and checking out the different ways to help. There's lots of different campaigns they're working on right now, like Buy an Acre or Save a Tree, and particularly the present one is Barbacoas in Colombia. It was really lovely working with Hayley Westenra on the album Pure. She's a really great person, and yes, we keep in touch with each other periodically, but at the moment no plans to work together. But I'm currently working with a wonderful artist called Emma Quinn. She's a beautiful Irish singer and composer, and we will probably be performing Green Man together at some point. And I've also co-written and recorded with her on her new album. It's called, if I can pronounce it right, Erihu, which is out at the beginning of May. And she'll also be recording with me on my full-length album, which I'm hoping will be ready, if I can get all the musicians together, around June or July of this year. And I would say the other person who I would really love to collaborate with on some musical environmental project is Greta Thunberg, and she's just making big waves and people are listening. And I think the world needs a beacon of light to help us all to see more clearly. And I think Greta is doing just that. And she's a small person, but she's just making an epic difference to the way we think, and hopefully in time to our actions, which really affect our planet. I love listening to all sorts of music, all genres, from classical, rock, jazz, singer-songwriter, choral. Right now, actually, I'm listening to Colin Hayes' Beautiful World. I really love this song because it's just so happy and sunny, and it makes me think of the sea. And as a fun point of interest, I was listening to Kylie Minogue on Desert Island Discs, and I discovered that it was also one of Kylie's favourite tracks. And on, I guess, the Aussie note still, I really love the Finn Brothers songs, the brothers who created Crowded House. They're such beautiful songwriters. Final message. Well, it's a very important and poignant time for everyone on this planet, and also for the natural world right now. And I think it's almost like someone's pressed a giant pause button and given nature some long overdue respite. And even now, I think the air seems fresher, and the birds are singing more fervently, and butterflies and other insects are appearing. And you just get this impression that nature just wants to bloom with everything she's got. And I think although it may be a very challenging transition for everyone at the moment, there's such an opportunity to look at new ways of being. So finally, going back to Green Man, I feel that music is such an amazing art form with huge healing potential. And that is my wish for Green Man, to heal and to help people in the only way that music can. And I'm a great believer in that little phrase, it's the feeling that attracts the healing. And I think if only we can collectively harness the power of positive thought, it can affect big changes. And I think not only in our personal world, which is absolutely where it starts, but then on a global level. So my message is, let's keep an eye on our thoughts and let's make choices out of love and not out of fear.